Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Business of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Dave Guttman. If you find this content useful, please like, subscribe, and share. I'm super excited for my guest today, Dr. Alan Alexander, CEO and founder of CoreViva, former team doctor for the Lakers and the Dodgers, and former global head of medical imaging for McKinsey. Usually you don't see that McKinsey background in the average doctor. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
So I remember when I was in your office, I asked you specifically, what does CoreViva mean? Is it like Latin for something, or how did you guys come up with the name in the first place?
Yeah. So, one morning I was surfing, and that's when I usually have my clearest thoughts because you're not connected to any electronics. Nobody can really bother you. So it's just kind of a Zen moment for me, and I usually come up with some of my greatest ideas when I'm surfing. And so I was sitting and thinking, and as we were coming up with a name. And I said, this is looking at the inside of your body. It's the core. And so I said, okay, maybe core should be part of the name, but there's something missing to it, right? It's not just core. So as I was thinking about it, when you come in and you get your scan, it's the core. You were looking at your core. When we have that consultation and you're leaving with a lot of clarity and plan so you can live. And so CoreViva, and that's how we came up with it.
Well, look, and I know that was my experience, which was, it was nice to hear that no cancer anywhere, which was, after having been told I was dying when I was younger.
Yeah.
So that was a nice relief to feel that. And then be like, with some really constructive things like, hey, here are some things you can do for your neck. Here are some things you can do for your ankles, your back. Like really constructive. Like I was not expecting that at all.
I'm glad that you had a great experience. And I'll give you a funny story. So Know Your Body, our tagline, after we came up with it and the team, we said, we need a tagline. We need something punchy. And so I'll never forget this, 3 a.m, I wake up and I say, know your body. Because that's what it really comes down to, know your body. And I wake up my wife. I say, hey, I got it. She said, got what? I said, I got the tagline, know your body. She's like, I like that. Now go back to sleep.
Because you got to get back to one of your 4 pillars, which is make sure you get enough sleep.
That's right. That night I didn't, but because I was so excited, I went to sleep. I was like, I got it. And you keep waking up to not forget it. Because I should have just written it down, but I was like, every 2 hours, like, did I forget it? No, it's know your body, know your body. And then finally I got up and I put it in my phone. But yeah, that was a bad night of sleep, but for a good reason.
So was there something specific? Was there like a specific thing that said, you know what? Hey, I think there's a gap in the market, but there was something that was sort of the precursor, like, hey, now we've got to do this.
So personally for me, when starting CoreViva, I had a mission in mind. I figured I kind of, all the knowledge and kind of business accumulation that came together, I said, I can put this together to make a really big impact. And I have a mission to save 10,000 lives. And I'm not going to give up until I get there. And so my mission is to save 10,000 lives with CoreViva. And
wow.
So we're getting there, but
you're about 30 now, right? Something like that, 28, 30?
For cancers, but we've also found other things like we found multiple brain aneurysms, aortic aneurysms, heart disease, liver disease, fatty liver, high visceral fat. So we found a lot of different things that could basically kill somebody. And so, yeah, we've saved quite a few lives so far, but I want to get to that 10,000 number, and that's really going to make me happy.
Oh, cool. Well, that's an amazing goal. Well, that's fantastic.
Thanks.
So obviously, to my viewers, I actually went into CoreViva for an AI-enhanced MRI scan just at the beginning of this week. And as soon as I had that experience with you guys, I'm like, I've got to have you on because the world needs to know what you guys are doing. But before we get into CoreViva and all the cool stuff you're doing there, maybe talk a little bit about kind of how that was the path you ended up getting into in the first place. You usually don't see, the fact that, go to medical school and you work at McKinsey and, I'm going to code my own AI stuff. And I work for the Lakers. Like that's an unusual combination of stuff. So maybe what did your folks do? Did you have siblings? Like how did you get into that field in the first place?
Well, I've been interested in medicine probably since I was a kid. And I was actually interested in a lot of, not just medicine, but science. Science is actually probably what really interested me. And so when I was a kid, I was the one that was making the volcanoes with the clay and then putting the baking soda and the vinegar and having that, always doing little experiments like that. And then I got my first microscope and I was super fascinated by looking at slides and looking at zoomed in. So I was always interested in science. And actually one thing that you probably didn't know is I actually started my pathway in a PhD program at MD Anderson Cancer Center because I was really interested in finding cure for cancer. And so really pushed on the cancer research for a while. Most of my mentors were MDs or MD PhDs. And they said, if you really want to do the clinical research route, it behooves you to get an MD. So I shortened it to a master's program, defended my thesis, and then went on to med school. So that's kind of the background of my pathway. And radiology has always been really fascinating to me because it's a very visual field. You have to look at things and diagnose them. And I feel like we're kind of like the doctor's doctor because we have to figure out what's going on the inside and let doctors know what to do as next steps. And so that's always fascinated me. And so that's kind of how I veered into that path. And again, I've always been interested in technology and kind of advancing things and doing things kind of thinking outside the box. And that's probably, how I ended up where I am. But specifically CoreViva, I just realized that there's a big gap in today's screening process. So for example, we have great screening. The screening paradigm is at age 45, you get a colonoscopy. And if you don't have any high risk or anything, that's just a standard 45. And then if that's clean, every 10 years. And that's men and women. For women, it's age 40 for breast screening, for mammography, and then cervical pap smears for cervical cancer. But that's it. So how are we screening for pancreatic cancer? How are we screening for ovarian cancer? How are we screening for brain aneurysms, brain tumors, fatty liver disease, fatty liver? There's things that we're not necessarily screening for that we should be, because if you catch these things early, then you're going to be ahead of the game and you can live longer and increase your health span and lifespan. But if you're not catching it early and you wait until you have symptoms, oftentimes it's too late. And so we were trying to find that, how can we bridge that gap of screening and find everything early before it's too late?
And your interest in the cancer stuff, was that because there was someone close to you or someone in your family that had cancer, and that's why you were interested in that?
I've had a couple, I had an aunt unfortunately pass away from cancer. My mom's a breast cancer survivor. So it does hit close to home. And I think, statistics show that actually 1 in every 2 men and 1 in every 3 women will get cancer.
Oh, wow.
And frankly, we've actually all had cancer in our bodies. We always have tumor cells that our immune system can beat. And so you and I have had cancer at some point in our life. But when it gets big enough and then causes problems, and big enough means even like 2 or 3 millimeters sometimes, then, because at first it's just cells, but then they kind of start clustering together. That's when you start having problems. And so our immune system's pretty efficient, but when it's not, then that's when you get the early stage cancer. So this does hit close to home. And I've had friends that have had cancer, and I feel like cancer used to be an old person's disease, but now we're seeing that it's a younger person's disease. I'm seeing patients in their 20s, 30s, and my wife's a physician too, and she's been seeing patients 20s, 30s, 40s that are getting cancer. And so we just need some better screening and a way to do it.
So is that something that you've actually seen that has shifted, that the cancers really are happening to people that are younger? Because I can't tell what's real from the press, from the media, but that is what you're seeing?
Oh, not just what I'm seeing, but the studies have shown that. And so there's been an increase. I don't want to misquote numbers, but something like there's been an 80% increase in the last 3 decades of young cancer. Young cancer is defined under age 50.
Okay.
And so, which I like that definition of young.
Yeah. You're right on the cusp.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. But in my mind, young is up to 80. Then you're starting then you're starting to go downhill, I think, maybe. But yeah, so we do see that shift to a younger population of getting cancer.
And you think that's largely the food supply? Like, what's your theory on what do you think is causing that?
Oh, I think part of it's what we're putting in our bodies, for sure. Processed foods, we all know now is bad for you. A lot of different high fructose corn syrup, for example, was a mainstay in a lot of stuff we used to drink and eat when we grew up. Every soda used to have it. They've gotten better about moving off the shelves, but you still see it in a lot of snacks and things like that. High fructose corn syrup has been shown to cause pancreatic cancer. So these entities that we're kind of ingesting ourselves with, not having a clean diet, so to speak, I think is a big major contributor. Also, there might be environmental factors that I'm not completely aware of, but there's just stuff around us all the time that we could be breathing in or drinking or whatever that we just don't know. But for sure, the food is a big problem. So
then what you were saying before about we all get cancer, but the immune system kills it off.
Yeah.
So does that mean that most forms of cancer are really more of an immune system underperforming as opposed to something else, some exogenous thing causing the problem?
The cells are not replicating or not dying off the way they're supposed to, and so they start replicating without any restriction, and so that's how you get cancer. So definitely is the outside hurting the inside.
Got it. So so you have an interest in cancer. You make the pivot from getting a PhD to getting your MD, but then you go to work for McKinsey. Was McKinsey first, or was the Lakers and the Dodgers first?
McKinsey was first. So in 2013, I believe, dates go by me now these days, but in 2013, I think it was, I was part of the American College of Radiology Commission on Economics. And I was part of a group that we were trying to get tomosynthesis pushed to cover. So tomosynthesis is 3D mammography. And 3D mammography is much better at detecting early cancer in the breast than 2D mammography. 3D mammography was not covered by insurance. And so we came together to really push, essentially you have to get enough data and make it clear that it's cost effective, pass that through CMS, which is Centers for Medicaid Services. They then assign, if they agree, they assign a CPT code and then it gets covered by insurance. And so that was our goal. This is definitely catching cancers earlier, let's get women coverage because it's better for them. And I believe it was January 2nd of 2015, it was passed. And they signed a CPT code and insurance covered it. So that's great. Now every woman can have tomosynthesis 3D mammography covered to catch cancers earlier in the breast. That experience got me introduced to some folks from McKinsey. And it was really interesting because they framed it in a way. I said, look, they were recruiting me. And I said, look, I still want to practice as a physician. And so they were able to help me carve out time to practice as a physician and continue to, do the great stuff at McKinsey. But they phrased it in a way which I thought was very fascinating to me. We don't get any business education in medical school or medical training, unfortunately. And so I was always interested in the business side of medicine because you need to understand it to make medicine function the most efficiently and help the most people. And so they framed it as, think of it as you're coming in and getting an MBA hands-on, but we're paying you. So that's a very interesting way to frame it. And yes, I'd love to learn it. So after further conversations, I joined, and it was a great run. I was there for between 6 and 7 years, and it was just, I learned so much. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today if I didn't do that. Or the great people. A lot of our teammates are McKinsey and at CoreViva are McKinsey alumni. So I wouldn't have been able to bring this great group of people together without that.
Now, McKinsey, I mean, when I went to business school, like that was the most plum job you could get was McKinsey, either investment banking or working for McKinsey and consulting. So then you go from there to, now, were you an athlete growing up?
Yeah.
Did you have an interest? That's why you had an interest in maybe doing sports medicine?
Yeah. So, and by background, I'm a musculoskeletal radiologist. And so, I read the whole body obviously, but I really, love the joints. I love the muscle, I love the muscles. I've been an athlete all my life. Right now I'm an avid surfer and I do that most mornings. And so, I've always been, I played soccer when I was younger. So just a lot of different sports. I played like every sport in high school. And so really interested in that world. And part of it is because, mobility equals longevity. You notice that as people are old, or as people get older, the ones that are more active and more mobile actually do a lot better. And so, and one thing that actually you probably didn't know either is back in now I'm dating myself, 1999, I was at the NIH and I was part of the group that studied caloric restriction increases longevity. We actually proved that in a monkey model. And those mentors I've kept in touch with for many, many years. Unfortunately, one of them passed away during the pandemic, but we were always kind of collaborating and talking about longevity medicine, which is also a big interest of mine. And cancer kind of comes into play with that, right? Because if you can catch cancers early, you can live longer, but what else can you do to live longer? And so mobility, strength is a piece of that. And that's what always got me interested in that.
Yeah. So how long were you, were you the Dodgers and Lakers at the same time
same time. There was a group of us. So, it's not just me, there's a lot of physicians and radiologists that deal with it. Yeah. So I was there for a couple of years. And then, interestingly, there was a lot of questions about whole body screening. And that's when I started looking into it and realized there's nothing really good out there that does this. And there's an opportunity to do this the right way and bridge that gap to screen because we don't have good screening.
Right. So I'm going to go through the stats. I think I remember. You can tell me if I got them wrong. So you guys just opened in August. I've done over 700 screens, I think, total, right? And was it 29 cancers caught, 26 of which?
30 now.
30 now, okay. Yeah. 26 of which were stage 1? Or
27 now.
27 that were stage 1, wow. Yeah, since Monday. And stage 1, total no symptoms. So 27 people that had no symptoms, stage 1, and you guys caught it.
Yeah, stage 1 or 2, but yeah, we caught it. So early stage is how we, and so, and that's the key because the 3 cancers that we caught that were advanced stage, all 3 of those patients were symptomatic. So if you think about it, symptoms usually appear once the cancer gets big enough or spreads, but symptoms usually don't appear when it's a small cancer. And that's why you want to catch it in an early stage because small cancers are also much, much higher risk of survival. Some cancers, 95, 99% survival at that early stage. Whereas late stage cancers, now you're dropping to 10, 15%, even sometimes 5% survival as it gets later stage. And depending on the cancer. So you really want to catch that early, but oftentimes late cancers are symptomatic. Early cancers are not. So how do we fix this? We catch things early before they're symptomatic.
Right. So, a few years ago, you decide that there's a gap in the market. Was Prenova was around then, right? Or maybe they were early?
Really early at that time.
Really early? Yeah. And Ezra, was that around then as well or no?
If it was, I didn't know about it.
Okay. Yeah. So you decide there's a gap in the market and that you're going to do an AI overlay on the high-end MRI imaging, but instead of hiring people to do it, you're going to code it yourself, you and your partner.
Partners, yeah.
Yeah, partners. how did you come to that conclusion, and how did you build the skill set to actually do that coding? Because you have to come up with the algorithms, pattern matching, data training set, all of
Yeah,
that. Like
yeah.
that's not a small task.
No, and that's why it took us 2 years to build it. And so, again, thanks to McKinsey, when I was there, I was really interested in coding and learning. I was trying to learn a little bit on my own because I feel like, at least for me, if there's something that I think is going to be valuable to help make an impact, I want to learn it. And so I started teaching myself, but then there was an opportunity to go to a boot camp. And so they sent us to a boot camp to learn coding, and I did it. And then my 2 other co-founders know how to code pretty well too. And so it was just great when we came together. We said, look, here's what we're going to do. It was very quick. We mapped out our plan. We kind of made a game plan. We started coding. We started testing things. Obviously, it takes time. So it took us 2 years to really build our proprietary protocols, build our AI to get it to the right place. So we were confident in saying, okay, now we can use this on patients and help screen things faster.
If you don't mind me asking, and if this isn't like some crazy secret, how did you actually test it? Did you just take a whole bunch of known case studies and say, okay, we know what the results of these were, and just run thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of images through it and see what it did?
Some of that, and some of actually getting volunteers to come in
Okay.
and actually screen them and see what we found and how well it was detecting things. So,
Right. And now, as I was thinking about it, correct me if I'm wrong, the cancers that you wouldn't be able to screen for is obviously any kind of blood cancer like a leukemia, right?
So leukemia, you can actually, if depending on the stage, you can actually see changes in bones, because
Oh.
leukemia is basically, your blood is made from bone marrow, and so you can actually see certain changes in the bones it wouldn't necessarily say this is definitely leukemia, but it says this is some kind of what we call blood dyscrasia, and then you would just get a blood test, and then it would show you that it's
Wow.
leukemia. Yeah.
I would not have guessed that. And then the other one obviously is colon cancer. I know you were talking about using colonoscopy as a way to be able to screen for that.
Yeah, so we've caught one, but as I explained to you, so when you're coming in for an MRI, you have stool or poop in your bowels,
Right.
and so with the colonoscopy you get cleaned out. So I can see if there's something on the outer walls that's thickened that would suggest cancer, but I can't see the inner walls of those subtle polyps because the poop is hiding it.
Right.
And so a colonoscopy is the best thing for that, because they take a camera and they look at every nook and cranny. So colonoscopy is still the gold standard for that.
Right. Are there any other types of cancers that you are unable to detect at all?
The earliest of breast cancers.
Okay.
And because the earliest of breast cancers often show up as 2 to 3 millimeter calcifications. And that's what mammography is really good at picking up. An MRI can't pick up 2 millimeter calcifications, for example. So
Okay.
that's probably the other only one. That's why mammography is still the gold standard. We always tell patients, don't skip your mammography, don't skip your colonoscopy. Those 2 are still gold standards.
So then, because if I remember correctly from the data, you at least so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, no false positives, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the other issue. Like when I've heard about, not to trash your competitor, but that's what I've heard with Prenovo is, you're getting a lot of false positives. Is it just that you guys have better IP, you have better algorithms?
So you said competitor. We actually don't have competition. Nobody does anything as well as we do. So competitor means it's somebody that does something similar to you.
Right.
There's nobody that does what we do. So
I know the experience was vastly different than what we had another client that had done Prenovo, and it's apples and oranges for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But a couple things. One we take very thin slices. So we try not to miss anything. And there have been people that have gotten scans, and this is public information. People have actually talked about it. They've gotten scans with the competitors,
Right.
or what you call competitors, I call others. And they've actually either overdiagnosed or missed something. And we have multiple cases of that, which is unfortunate, because I think this already can be anxiety provoking. And so you want to make sure you get the most accurate scan available. And so that's why that's why it took us 2 years to make sure we have the fastest, most accurate, most comprehensive scan that exists. And that's why it took us a while to bring this out, because we want to make sure this is as accurate as possible. Our goal was to reduce the false positive, because that is the big issue in this realm. And I'm glad you brought that up. One is the quality of scan. And number 2 is the quality of the person reading it. And so a lot of folks, from what I understand, outsource the radiology. They're not employed or part of a team, whereas our radiologists are all in-house and they're dedicated to the company. And we make sure that we read everything to the utmost standard, and we take our time with it. And, this is ours. So it just means a lot more, And so, and the training, everybody's very well trained at the top institutions.
So, and I'll tell you my own personal experience. Obviously, you spend an hour with me, going from my brain down to my toes, every joint, every organ system.
Yep.
And I've had a fair amount of, executive physicals and things like that through my career, through my life. Never anything that thorough. I mean, you knew what was wrong with my ankle, what was wrong with my shoulder, my neck, gave me exercises to actually repair stuff. I mean, I never had that experience before. It really was, top notch. I guess my
Thank you.
question for you is, how do you maintain that as you scale? Because I was looking it up when I was prepping for today. I think Prunova raised 120 million or some astronomical amount of money. I mean, you guys are not VC backed, right? You bootstrapped it, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep that quality as you scale, and how do you think about scaling?
Yeah, so quality is of the utmost importance to us. And so we're physician-backed, physician-led. We have a bunch of physicians that invest in us. We have others that invest in us too. But like you mentioned, we're not institution-backed. And that allowed us to do things the way we thought should be done without any outside influence. We're doing this patient-centric, and because we're physician-led and backed, it allows us to do that. So how do you maintain that at scale? We actually have a very large roster of awesome radiologists that are ready to deploy once we have other places. So these are people that are similar to us, that what you experience will sit down with you, not just know radiology, but know medicine in a very broad realm and can help you. So for example, giving you exercises, giving you tips, you don't leave without a clear game plan. Not only do we go over to scan, and that's why I say we have no competition, because nobody does this, but we don't just go over to scan with you. We tell you what this means and what you can do about it. And you leave with clarity and peace of mind sometimes, most of the time. And so that's our goal. And so we're going to continue to do it, build it in that fashion.
And you feel like you can do that, be profitable enough to make it make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's funny, you know this, but I ran a telemedicine company for about 5 years. And, we did the same. We had a completely different business model. Teladoc, who you might have heard of, they were getting like 1.5%, 2% utilization. We had 55% utilization.
Oh, wow.
We were told, you can't profitably run a business like that. I'm like, yeah, you can. It's like we charged 10 times as much as Teladoc, but we generated 25 times the value.
Wow.
And we had no problem with our price point at all, because we had a better mousetrap.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, are you planning on having additional locations? Are you planning on staying in one location for a while? Like, what's your growth strategy?
Yeah, no, we definitely do want to grow. We want to make it easy for people to get to us. It's been fascinating. I'll tell you, Dave. So we've had patients from Dubai, Saudi Arabia, China, East Coast, Nebraska, Texas, Canada, all over. And so we've had people from all over the place visit us, which is fantastic. I love that. But we also want to make it easier for people to meet them where they are. And so, yeah, we do want to be in as many places as we can that makes sense.
Right. Do you think you'll bring in outside capital at some point, or
we're open to a lot of different possibilities.
Right.
We'll see where that goes.
Yeah. So I remember, God, back well before ChatGPT or any of before AI became a little bit more mainstream, I think radiology was the first place that I, at least as a layperson, heard, hey man, if you're in school to be a doctor for radiology, maybe you want to change, your concentration. And they were saying that the AI was doing a better job than humans. And I guess it made some sense to me, because at some level I'm like, well, it's kind of a pattern matching exercise, and no human being could look at 10 million, images, but an AI could, right? So that made some sense, but that's not the experience, right? So you guys basically said, well, not only are we going to not be scared of AI, we're going to embrace it. We're going to code it ourselves.
Yeah.
So what is the part that a human being is better at, and what is the part that the AI is better at?
I look at AI as an augmenter, not a replacer. It makes our lives easier. It makes us more accurate. And so I don't think AI is at the level yet where it can replace. And I also think people want that personal interaction and touch with a physician. I would crave it. I wouldn't want just a machine telling me answers. And because you can have a conversation too. And it's very obvious, at least these days, when you have a conversation with AI, you know it's AI. But I think the AI, for example, allows our scanner to go faster. Our AI is an extra pair of eyes for us as it goes through everything. Our AI gives you the CoreViva score, which is the brain age, the musculoskeletal age, the visceral fat score, and the muscle bulk score. I can't calculate that. That's what the AI is for, right? So the AI does have a really important place in what we do, but it's not I don't see it as a replacement, not anytime soon.
So let's take one of those. So like the brain score, so if it says that someone who's 50 has a brain score of 50,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it brain volume? Like what are the things it takes into account when it
Volume,
calculates a brain
yeah,
score?
volume is one of the factors. There's other factors that I think are proprietary, so I don't want to reveal too much, but volume is one of the factors. And it's based on a massive amount of normalized data that of brains, for example. So, I love the brain age because I think it's, when I always look, I always guess,
Right.
and I'm usually within a couple of years. So it's kind of fun to guess. Sometimes I'm off, but I'm usually within a couple of years, and that's fun because it's okay. The AI knows because it has all the data. This looks older or younger to me than the stated age. And so it's almost like a sniff test, it's accurate in that way. So,
Huh. Interesting. And so I never really thought that someone's brain structure on an image would change so materially that you would be able to, because it said my
Yeah.
brain age was basically exactly my age.
Oh, good.
So I don't know I don't know if that's good. That's probably not great, right?
Yeah, that's good. I think it's good.
Well, no, don't you want your brain age to be younger than it is?
I guess. I mean, some people's brain age is super young, but probably because they're immature. But no, I mean, I think that's fine. My fear would be to have it a lot higher, because then that means your brain is likely aging faster than you are. So I don't think an age at your age is a bad thing at all. I think an age well above your age is more concerning, because that means you're probably having some early signs of atrophy, dementia, that kind of thing. And so you want to, but the nice thing is if you see that, you can catch it early and talk about
Right.
Tactics that you can do to prevent that.
So, it's funny. I think the two issues that most people have when they're dealing with a doctor is, one, that doctors don't spend very much time. Like, I literally can't remember the last time a doctor spent an hour with me. Maybe never.
Yeah.
And including ones that were telling me I was dying, right, when I wasn't.
Yeah.
So like they might spend 5 minutes with you, 10 minutes, an hour, and it's unheard of. And I guess the other frustration that I really didn't feel when I was talking to you about it was, you seem to have such a holistic view of things. Doctors tend to be, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if I'm a cardiologist, everything is a cardiological problem. If I'm a orthopedist, everything requires surgery.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone who really kind of takes the full view of things, and you don't really see that often. Why is that?
My guess, I mean, we're all trained in medicine, and we learn a lot about everything in medicine. And so my guess is that, you just have your, unfortunately, most physicians are overburdened. There's more patients, there's less time. Medicine is the only, at least from what I know, it's the only industry where reimbursements decrease every year, because the government decreases reimbursement every year, which I think is kind of crazy, because there's inflation and there's reimbursements and it doesn't match. So physicians are forced to see more patients just to stay solvent and, stay at the same level. And because of that, they're rushed. And like you said, you don't get a lot of time with physicians. And so I think it's not necessarily on the physician, it's just the system creates such a situation that you have to see more patients and therefore less time. And therefore you just want to focus on so for example, the cardiologist wants to focus on making sure your heart and your cardiovascular system is healthy. And so there's not a lot of time to go into everything else. And I think that's the challenge.
Well, not only that, but there's so much interdependency. Like, that's the reason why I'm thinking to myself, I probably would be nervous if I was in medical school or law school right at the moment because of AI. It's like, if I'm talking to a doctor, even if let's say they're a cardiologist, and even if they're a really good one, very knowledgeable, they go to a few symposiums a year, they read a bunch of research papers every month. That's like 1% of all of the content just that year that was created in the one domain area of cardiology. But then you add neurology, urology, and all the other ologies, right?
Yeah.
And imagine you could consume every paper ever written, every bit of research ever done in every language. As of 5 minutes ago, AI can do that, and no human being can do that. Where do you think both what you're doing with CoreViva and maybe the medical space and longevity space more broadly is going to be in, say, 5 or 10 years based on what, because you're closer to the AI in the medical arena than most people.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes us just faster. It makes us faster and better, and allows me to spend more time with you. So I don't have to go and, read a bunch of scans that are going to take me forever, because the AI helps me read them faster. And so I think the more that we can build our AI, the more we can pay attention to the patient. And I think that's where that comes in and helps a lot.
So as of today, how much faster can you read a scan versus how long it would have taken you before?
Oh, that's a hard calculation to make.
Is like, 50% faster, 90% faster?
No, not 90%. Somewhere between, I'm going to this is a very random ballpark because
Right.
it's hard to tell because I haven't really sat and thought because we didn't do pre and post. We just, we have our AI and we started,
Right.
I don't know, maybe 20, 30% faster, maybe
Okay.
maybe 50% faster in some cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously you have a strong interest, personally in longevity.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I've been studying this since, like I said, so what's 27 years now.
Okay.
I kind of know what works and what doesn't. I don't really listen to I read studies. So
Sure.
so instead of listening to folks, what I do is I stay up on the literature.
Okay.
And I'm very deep in that. And I stay up on what works and what doesn't. I look at studies. That's the content that I consume.
Okay. And so do you think in your lifetime, we're going to be able to either stall aging or reverse aging in your lifetime?
That depends how long I live. So I think, what's interesting about aging is everybody's looking for shortcuts. And, the basics of, I always say, look at the blue zones, so you have Nicoya in Costa Rica, you have Sardinia in Italy, you have Ikaria in Greece, you have Okinawa in Japan, and you have here in Southern California, Loma Linda, or sorry, we're not in Southern California right now, but
Right.
where I live in Southern California, Loma Linda. And those are the blue zones. And the blue zones are places where people usually average over 100 years of age. They've been doing this for many, many years. And there's no secret potions or shortcuts, but just looking at how they live, and I call it the 4 pillars of longevity. So pillar number 1, eat clean. And what I've found is Mediterranean diets seem to be a very clean diet, but you get healthy fats, avocados, nuts, fish, you get the healthy fats from those, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, again, fish, poultry. Try to limit. I love steak, but I try to limit it because there's a lot of high saturated fat in steak. Pillar number 2 is move, be active, work out, exercise. And I think, mobility, again, going back to mobility equals longevity. You got to move and be strong and be active. Now, when I say be strong, doesn't mean you have to be a bodybuilder. Just be strong enough for yourself that you can do your daily activities very comfortably. And then number 3 is sleep well. And I have a 3-2-1 rule for sleep. So 3 hours before sleep, no food. 2 hours before sleep, no fluids. 1 hour before sleep, no screen time. And if you follow those, you usually get restful sleep. And so those are the 3. And then the 4th pillar is preventive screening, because cancer doesn't discriminate. And diseases sometimes don't discriminate. And so sometimes you have just genetic predisposition, for example, for high cholesterol, fatty liver, et cetera. And so the goal is to find things early before they become a problem, because you could do everything else right, but unfortunately get cancer. But if you catch it early enough, you're fine. So that's the 4th pillar of longevity. And that's why CoreViva kind of fits into that. And so if you follow those 4 pillars of longevity, I think you can live a long, healthy life. And it's not just living a long, healthy life, but enjoying that long, healthy life. So not being consumed with, I got to take this and that and these shortcuts. Those blue zones, they do very well, and they're not doing anything,
Yeah, I was at A4M this year, and I'm fairly sure that if I took every concoction that was offered to me there, I'd be dead before I left the event. I mean, it was like 12 hours of over 2 days of walking the floor. And the part that I found so interesting was, because for Titan Arc, we were looking at, hey, what's a really good test to test for mitochondria health?
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured, well, who better to ask than companies that claim to have products that help mitochondria performance?
Yeah.
And so I would ask them, and they would all say the same thing. Well, yeah, there really isn't a good test. I was like, well, then how the heck do you know your product even works? And then I did the same thing. We were trying to figure out what the best gut biome test was. So I figured who better to ask than people that had pre and probiotic offerings. They would know.
Yeah.
And they were all telling me different. There were like 8 different companies that did it that were at the conference, and they were telling me different ones. Told me each of the 8. Oh, that one doesn't work. That's trash. That one's good. It really is. It just feels like it's just a sea of noise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think also I'll say one thing that's interesting. I mentioned to you that I was on a Zoom with Brian Johnson, and he had mentioned something about lengthening his telomeres. That's fascinating because that is a true marker of longevity. If you're, because your telomeres shorten as you age, and that's just a thing, and then cells die. And if he's lengthening them, that's really fascinating. That means he is reversing aging.
So he claims to have lengthened his telomeres?
Yeah. And so, if that's true, that's amazing. So that's very fascinating. I just wonder if you can lengthen him so long that you become a baby, like Benjamin Button. Pretty soon he's not gonna be able to speak because he goes back to 2 years old. But I mean, credit to him. He's done a lot of interesting research for himself, and if he's really lengthened his telomeres, that's fascinating, because that is a true age reversal. But he's spending god awful amount of money trying to do it, and so that's not.
Well, he made 400 million from Venmo, so
Yeah,
if I can afford it.
But others can't, and that's the point, And so just getting back to the basics, none of those people in Loma Linda or in Okinawa spent that kind of money to live long. They're just getting back to the basics.
So it's interesting. So I think you're right about all that stuff. The one part I would say is the fitness part, right? And I think of that both cardiovascular fitness and resistance training. That, like, my dad's 84 and on 0 medications, which is pretty rare for an 84-year-old. But I mean, he's shrunk 5 or 6 inches in the last 5 years. He's lost an enormous amount of muscle mass. And this is with him actually having exercised. I wouldn't say he's doing a lot, but he's doing calisthenics. He's doing cardiovascular. He's doing like a Norwegian 4x4. So he's doing stuff. And I feel like that you've got to push that harder than the average person probably does to retain the level of. I know, like Peter Attia talks about this. VO2 max and leg strength and grip strength being 3 really, that if those numbers are, if you can maintain those numbers over time, that you're not just your ability to expand your lifespan, but your health span is greatly increased.
Yeah. I agree. Well, so I agree in a sense. So those metrics, you don't want to just focus on those metrics. You want to be able to do the things that get those metrics. So for example, if you're just focusing on grip strength, you're forgetting everything else. But I think some people do that, and that's why I want to
So you increase your level of fitness, the side effect of which your grip strength is because I'm not having to hold barbells and dumbbells and pull-ups and things like that. My grip strength is going to improve.
Right. Exactly. And I think no, that's for sure. If you think about it, if you're stronger and you have more muscle bulk, and that's why we measure muscle bulk in our CoreViva score. Well, our AI does it. If you have more muscle bulk, you're less likely to get injured. So, for example, what's one of the biggest what's the word I'm looking for? What can decline age the fastest in older people? It's a hip fracture.
Okay.
And so if you have, and every time you see, not every time, but most times people that have hip fractures, they decline pretty bad because they lose that mobility. Again, mobility equals longevity. And so to prevent that, you want to stay strong. You want to, keep your hips, your legs strong. That's why we look deeply at the joints to make sure they're in good shape. And I think that's the key to, so there is a component of you want to stay strong, you want to stay fit. Again, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, but you want to be strong for your age. You want to be strong for what you have, what you're working with. I think those are important. Actually, what's interesting is recently I was reading, this is actually kind of hot on the press in my mind, so I can share this with you. I was reading it just 2 nights ago, that there's been some research that shows that the stronger your back is, there's some link to longevity. Because the stronger your back is, the better that you're, and even unrelated things. So if you have a stronger back, you can actually do more with your chest. If you have a stronger back, you can do more with your arms. So it really starts from that lower back, which is great because, we always look at as you saw, we look at the lower back in detail and give you certain exercises to keep that strong. But I do think that it makes sense. There's a component to that because oftentimes what debilitates us, back pain, low back issues, and we're not as mobile when we get that.
Well, now you guys aren't specifically measuring bone density, right?
No, we qualitatively, not quantitatively.
Okay. So basically you can look at someone and say, okay, your bone density is fine or problematic, like that level of detail.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have to believe that, as you get old, like I without my dad getting a DEXA scan or a scan with you guys, I know his bone density can't be good just because of how much he's shrunk. Right? Like that seems like that would be a side effect of poor bone density.
Or discs.
Okay.
Because as discs flatten, you lose a little bit of height.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's lost like 5 inches.
It's
like 5
possible.
years.
It's interesting. Your discs are really plump when you're younger, and over time, depending on your activity level and depending on what you're doing, they can actually shrink pretty bad. And sometimes you can get even bone on bone, and then you get degenerative changes, and so your bone shrinks a little bit because of that degenerative changes. But yeah, you can definitely. I've even, again, I don't consider myself that old, but I even lost height because I see some of my discs. Right. And I said, oh, okay, that's why I thought I was a little bit taller than I.
Well, so is there an age at which? Because I feel like even now I'm turning 60 next week.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. Glad it's better than the alternative, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But like I feel still like I know I can still add muscle. Like when I work out heavily, I can see the difference in how my size and the size of my the circumference measurements of my limbs and stuff like that. So I know I can still add muscle. I can still drop body fat relatively easily. But there has to be an age at which again I can still go. Again, I'm not stupid. I don't go super heavy. I'm not doing like PRs or anything like that, but I lift reasonably heavy. Is there an age at which being able to, add muscle kind of, it's not really in the cards anymore?
I think actually it goes back to the CoreViva slogan, which is know your body. I think you just have to know your body. I don't think there's a age, this age you do this. I think you have to know yourself. And so I would say you're much more fit than most 60-year-olds that I've seen, which is great. But then if another 60-year-old comes and says, well, he's lifting that heavy, why shouldn't I? Because you might hurt yourself doing that, And so I think you just have to know yourself, and you don't want to get to a point where, for example, somebody that is not ready to lift heavy, or or is trying to overdo it, injures themselves, and now it's 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You want to be able to keep active. And so I think for every different person, it's just, what can you do to comfortably keep active and stay strong that's within your limits, that you're not hurting yourself? Because you don't want to get injured. And then, because I will say, and my wife reminds me of this all the time, you're not 20 anymore. If you get hurt, it takes a lot longer to heal. And, I've experienced this firsthand a few times in the last couple of years. And so it just takes a lot longer to heal. Whereas when I was 20, I'd heal within a week. Now it's like, a year sometimes.
Well, it's funny. It's like my top priority when I'm exercising is not injuring myself, like above everything else. Because for that exact reason, which is, and I know the difference between being fatigued and being injured. I know the difference in what those feel like. But anyway, so so there's not, you don't think there's like a biological age at which just the chemistry in terms of being able to, have hypertrophy and, and being able to, you don't think there's a hard and fast age by which that changes? No,
I mean, naturally, at least for men, for example, naturally your testosterone declines a little bit as you age. But if you are eating right and you're working out, you can actually maintain it. You know? And so, or at least keep it at a level that still works. So yeah, I don't think there's a specific number where you're saying, okay, now it's, I've heard people say that, at this age, no, nonsense. Because I've seen people that are, just go to Loma Linda. It's close by, right? I mean, or you could go to or you could go to Okinawa, whatever, pick one of those destinations. You'll see 100-year-olds that are doing great, very active. And so that kind of defeats that proof of, at this age you start declining. I don't think that's the case.
I think I meant to mention this, but like when I used to do triathlons, they write your age on your calf. So that means every person that passes you, or every person that you pass, you know how old they are. And there was always at least one guy in his 60s that would blow by me. And I'm like, okay, now I'm sure he's the, 5 standard deviations off the norm.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think I see people surfing that are, if I see really older people surfing, I always ask their age because I'm curious. And people are 80s and they're ripping and they're making me look like a fool. And so I love that though. I'm like, you're inspiration for me to keep doing this. This is not something I need to stop.
So you see people in their 80s that are surfing?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all the time.
Are you familiar with any of the AI-driven resistance equipment like the ARX or the OxFit? Have you familiar with those?
No. Tell me more.
So they basically, what they do is they maximize the time under tension. So I did 1 set on ARX because what it does is it increases through the entire arc of the exercise. It's maximizing how much I can, using AI to do it, maximizing how much load I can handle. And on the concentric, in the eccentric, it's basically giving me 2.2 times the load. So it's maximizing through the entire range of motion in both directions. I mean, I did 6 reps. I could barely walk.
Wow, interesting. That's fascinating. I'd like to check that out.
Yeah.
What is it called?
They have 2 machines. Each is $50,000. So, they're really.
Okay. Maybe I'll check it out some other time.
Yeah. Well, the OxFit's a little bit less expensive, but actually, we're actually including an OxFit
really?
with all of our Titan R clients. Get an OxFit.
Amazing.
Yeah, because it's basically in a 20 to 30 minute workout. I'm getting the equivalent time under tension to an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Wow.
The way I'm doing it is I'm only doing 1 upper body workout a week and 1 lower body workout a week.
Just one?
Just one.
Oh, wow.
And I'm able to do, right now I can do 75 push-ups unbroken, but my goal is to get to about 100, which I think I can get there in about 2 months.
That's awesome. You're the 5 standard deviations person.
Well, I know about that, but again, my recurring visual is my daughter, when I'm 100, my daughter will be 65, is that we're hiked a mountain together, we're watching the sunset together after hiking a mountain when I'm 100. That's my goal.
That's amazing. I hope you
get it. I don't need to live forever,
but
the years I have, I want them to be super high quality.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, so talk about maybe a little bit about, because I think the thing about the longevity stuff, in fact, I had this guy on my podcast about a year ago, and we were talking about biohacking.
Yeah.
And he was funny. He had an interesting take on it when he said it. As soon as he said it, I'm like, that's so true. When you really think about, oh, do you take methylene blue and this supplement and this methylated vitamin and this other thing and all the other stuff. And the reality is that all those things are, if anything, just trying to undo the damage from people's lifestyles because they're drinking alcohol or their diet's trash or they're not really doing exercise or, like Ozempic. So, out of the GLP-1s is a perfect example of, hey, I don't have time to, eat right or go to the gym, so I'll take a shot.
Right.
Now, people that are doing it smart are making sure they're taking in enough protein, making sure they're getting in a lot of resistance training. But if I remember correctly from the conversation me and Dr. Henley had, you guys are seeing significant muscle wasting in people on GLP-1s, right?
Yeah,
Like
some
20%?
Yeah, some people, yeah. Yeah, and the studies have shown that. It's not just us seeing it. There's been studies that show that you do see muscle wasting. And so, again, I don't think any shortcut, I had a professor years ago tell me every shortcut's going to lead you to a dead end. Now, that's a little extreme, but he was making a point. It's true. There's truth to that. Every shortcut does get you to a place where you don't want to. If you do it naturally, it's just better. I always go back to the blue zones because that's my data point of these guys have been doing it for hundreds of years and they live over 100 years old and they're not doing any kind of weird stuff, any kind of shortcuts or any kind of injectables. They're just living life the right way.
So that's actually a great segue. So I did TRT for about 5 years. My regular testosterone was around high 4s, low 5s, right? When I would get my blood work done. And so I had it, more up at like 950 range for the 5 years that I was on it. And then I decided, honestly, partially it's a royal literal pain in the ass to inject yourself twice a week. And then I said, well, let me see how high I can get it naturally. And I think between lifestyle and a few tweaks, I think I can get it to the 6s or 7s. And I feel like better to do that than to take something exogenous and to get it up artificially. One, the hassle factor is huge. But how do you feel about things like that as people get older, doing things like TRT and peptides and some of that stuff?
So everything has its side effects, and so there's been some studies that shown that exogenous TRT can increase cardiovascular disease. And so, you see that, for example, if you look at WWF folks, right? I mean, obviously they're taking some supplements.
Supplements. Yeah.
I'm trying to say it nice. But if you look at them, especially in the especially when we're growing up in the 80s and 90s, those guys were definitely, and they were massive, but a lot of them died from heart attacks. You notice that? Like a lot of them. And so, Macho Man, these are people I used to like watching. I can go, there's so many of them that just passed away from heart attack. And so, and many of them had heart surgery. Schwarzenegger has had multiple heart surgeries, right? So there's always a side effect that kind of comes with it. Nothing, again, there's no shortcut that's perfect. So it depends on it's up to the person. If the person says, look, I know the risks that are involved and I know the side effects that can happen, but I want to do or look or be this way, it's up to the person. It's a free country. You can do what you.
Well, the way I thought about it, maybe this is the wrong way to think about it, was like when you're Schwarzenegger, one of those guys, you're not getting your levels to 950. You're getting your levels to 2000, right?
Yeah, maybe.
They're way, way higher levels to get that massive, right? I was trying to get to a level, more like I was like in my late 20s, right? And so my logic was, could be completely wrong, was, well, the side effects should be somewhat minimized by the fact that, yes, I'm raising it, but I'm not raising it to some crazy level. I'm raising it to a level that it was for a good chunk of my life.
Sure. Yeah, there's always, you're exactly right. There's always a limit in how much you're doing. Obviously, you do more, it could affect you detrimentally more. So you're exactly right about that. I think the one thing, though, is no matter what you're doing, it's going to hurt it a little bit, right? It's going to have a little bit of side effects. So it's a question of, do you want that little bit of side effect, or would you just rather have none? Yeah. And again, it's a personal choice. Me, myself, I try to do it as clean as possible just because I want to try to give myself the best chance.
Well, I made the conscious choice to get off of it. And, now my testosterone's back around 500. And we'll see with Tight Narc, I'm going to try to get it to around 700. And I feel like if I can do that naturally, that's probably the better way to go. And what about some of the other peptides, or, human growth hormone, things like that? Probably, there probably are some use cases if you've got, you've lost a lot of muscle wasting from a severe cancer or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I think, we have to remember that there's a lot of peptides and natural peptides in our body. So,
right.
But I think you're talking about like the newer peptides that have been coming out. So what's interesting is, I'll give one specific example, BPC 157. Every patient that's come in and told me they've taken that, there's been maybe like less than a dozen, but every single one has said it's like a wonder drug. I've had an injury and now it's gone away because of BPC 157. So anecdotally, it seems like it works really well. There's an actual study that was done that's been published where they looked at 12 patients, so small, but they looked at 12 patients, and seven of them had positive effect from BPC. So it's a little bit more than 50%. So that's good. So
isn't placebo effect around 50%?
So yeah, I guess you could argue that.
Right.
But just and maybe everyone that I'm hearing anecdotally, maybe placebo, I don't know. But if I were to guess, it seems like at least it works in some cases. My two concerns are, one, it's not regulated, so you don't know exactly what you're getting. So are you getting something toxic that you're putting in your body? Are they mixing it with something that you don't know what it is? You don't know exactly what's in there. And so am I okay putting that in my body? So that's one thing. Second thing is that, because I think it's not allowed to be compounded in pharmacies right now. And so, but I guess we're getting close to where it could be. But number two, no long-term data. And so, we're hearing both positive and negative things about some of the GLP-1s, and it's only been a few years that's been out, that they're looking at it in this way. And so some of the negative things are concerning to me. Are we going to see that with some of these other peptides? I don't know. It's too early to tell. And so I'd like to see, so for example, at our clinic, we do PRP injections for joint injuries because I've been doing that for years, and I've set up the protocols for that. So I know, and I did it with athletes. And so I know that works. I know it's safe. It's your own blood. And so it's very safe to do, and I'm comfortable doing it. But some of these others are just too new. And our first oath as doctors is do no harm. I would hate to give you something 5 years later, we find out that it caused cancer. That's my biggest fear. So not to say it will, I don't know. But I'm more risk averse for my patients because I want to make sure that they have the best opportunity to live a long, healthy life.
So I'm guessing at some point you did your own CoreViva scan of yourself?
Yeah, of course.
Was there anything that you've learned from that surprised you?
Absolutely. So two things that were really interesting to me, and I think it was very, very valuable for me. One is that I had degenerative changes in my neck, and I don't have any pain, but when I looked at my neck, I said, whoa. And I actually looked twice to make sure it was my scan. I said, whoa, I didn't realize my neck, So I bought a chair that has a headrest so I can remind myself to, the problem is that a lot of us keep looking at, the phone is the way to communicate these days. Yeah. And, back in the 80s, we didn't have cell phones. Even in the 90s, we didn't have cell phones, so we're always looking straight. And I always joke that, we went from like Neanderthal man and started raising up to the human. Now we're going back to Neanderthal man as we're always, looking down. And probably part of it's that, and always looking at computers and things like that. So my neck didn't look great. Again, I didn't feel any symptoms. Also with my lower back, similar story, but I don't feel any symptoms. And so knowing that gave me the motivation to say, okay, I want to get ahead of this. Again, we always say prehab over rehab. Let me start doing exercises to strengthen my neck, to strengthen my lower back, so I don't get to the point where I'm starting to feel things. And so that was really enlightening for me because I wouldn't have guessed in a million years there was issues there. So that was probably the biggest highlight for me to know that.
Because I know, like from my scan, the neck part I was aware of, but the lower back stuff, and what the exercises you gave me to do for that, was not something I would have done.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any lower back pain.
Exactly.
I don't have any numbness or anything like that.
Exactly.
But it's like being able to see, oh no, there is some impingement there. The fact that you're not feeling it doesn't mean that there's not some impingement there.
Right.
And hey, here are some things to help open it up. Are there other things? Obviously, look, for me, it's a no-brainer to get a CoreViva scan every year. That's literally a no-brainer to me. My wife's going to do it. I know Dr. Hanley's going to do it. Like, you almost be crazy not to. Yeah. Are there other things that fall into that category? Like, hey, this is the kind of thing. I know you mentioned a colonoscopy. Yep. Are there, mammography for women? Yep. Are there other things that, hey, just from a longevity standpoint, in terms of being able to identify things earlier that you think people should be doing?
Well, I think the screening guidelines, like you mentioned, the colonoscopy, the mammography is important. Getting a CoreViva scan, I think, is important. I'm not just saying that to plug it. Like I'm doing it myself. My wife's doing it herself. Right. Our family does it, and I pay for their scans because I think it's important to understand that. Get ahead of things. Again, it's better to know early than before you start feeling something and it's too late. I think the third piece is just focus on yourself, meaning make sure you are doing those 3 pillars. Make sure you are eating clean. Make sure you are exercising, moving, active, both strength and cardiovascular, like you mentioned. And make sure you're sleeping well. I think, and I'm guilty of sometimes the 3-2-1 rule myself some nights, but if you follow that and you get good sleep, because sleep is such a major factor that I think we take for granted. The restoration that your body gets, the rejuvenation your body gets is so critical. And recently we had a friend over for dinner, and she said that, I can function on 6 hours sleep, and that's what I get. And I said, 6 hours. And I'll tell you something. So there's been studies done, and the percentage of people that can perform optimally with less than 8 hours of sleep, rounded up to the nearest whole number, is 0. Nobody can function optimally with less than 8 hours sleep. I don't care what you say. You can't. Your body's not meant for that.
Okay.
And so you really need that restorative sleep. And following that 3-2-1 rule helps you get into that deep sleep where it is restorative and regenerative. And so I think that's a piece that really does help you live longer. Because if you're fatigued, you handle stress. Your body handles stress less efficiently. You're more susceptible to infections. You're more susceptible to diseases. Your body doesn't repair as well. So you really need that restoration. I think that's really critical.
So I'm really glad you brought up the sleep stuff, because this has been the two things that drive me crazy have been understanding the right way to, am I getting the right amount of sleep?
Yeah.
And heart rate variability. I'll come back to heart rate variability in a second. On the sleep side, I did it at A4M, but I've done it at a couple of longevity conferences where I would talk to people that have sleep companies that, have these crazy devices to measure your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask them, like, so are you telling me that doesn't matter what my age is, doesn't matter what my gender is, doesn't matter what my level of fitness is, that we all need exactly the same amount of sleep? That does seem kind of odd that it's 8 hours for everybody. And I know that when I was younger, I know I needed more sleep than I do now.
Sure.
My experience now, and again, I don't know how to think about this, is I get 6 hours of sleep. I wake up without an alarm clock, and I don't feel like tired or lagging throughout the day. So I feel, and I'm getting, it depends if you ask the Whoop or the Oura Ring. The Oura Ring says if I'm getting 6 hours, the Oura Ring says I'm getting 2 hours of restorative sleep. The Whoop says I'm getting 3 hours of restorative sleep. I don't know which one's right.
That's interesting that there's a difference. That's interesting.
And they're consistently different by an hour.
Interesting.
Right? So I don't know what to make of it when I ask sleep experts, and I'll use the air quotes because they don't seem that expert to me. I mean, does everyone really need the same amount of sleep? And if I don't even know, like when I wake up and I'm rested, I could sit there, I could lay in bed for 2 more hours, but I'm not tired.
Do you follow the 3-2-1 rule?
I would say I rarely eat. The 3 for sure I do.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 almost always. The 1 is the one I don't. So I definitely am looking at my screen less than an hour before I go to sleep. That much for sure.
That may be what's waking you up earlier. Try not doing that and see if you actually fall asleep longer. So similar to you, I don't wake up with an alarm. I just wake up.
Right.
And I go to bed early and I wake up. But try the one. I'd love to see what happens. Try the 1 hour rule and be religious with it for a few weeks. See if you start sleeping longer. It might be part of it.
Interesting.
Because when I break the 1 hour rule, I don't get anywhere near 8 hours. I always wake up earlier.
So you do wake up, but you don't feel quite as high functioning.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try that. But back to the other part of my question. Don't people, the different ages, different genders, there must be some difference.
Yeah, so I would say maybe like half an hour plus or minus.
Okay.
Because there's also issues if you sleep too long. So there's half an hour plus or minus, but it's still within that range of like average 8 hours. And as you get older, you may need a little bit less sleep. That's a natural thing, but but generally that holds true.
Well, and I also do, again, could be placebo effect, but I read somewhere a long time ago that most people's circadian rhythm is right around an hour and a half. And so I have found that if I sleep for 3 hours.
You mean circadian rhythm? Oh, okay. I see.
That the full cycle is about an hour and a half. That if I sleep for 4.5 hours or 6 hours or 7.5 hours, I feel way better than if I wake up in between that. It could be total.
No, that's true.
Is that true?
Yeah. You could even get one cycle, and if you wake up right at the right time in that one cycle, you'll feel good. But then the rest of your day, you're going to feel that slump at some point. It's going to get to you. But you're right. If it really, because if I get woken up in the wrong cycle,
right,
I just feel, I don't know. I feel like a zombie basically.
Oh,
so yeah, no, there's some truth to that.
All right, well, I'm definitely going to try that. On the heart rate variability thing, is that an area that you know much about?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Well, so like everything I read was like, if it's under 50, that's not so good. And mine's like 15. And basically I think I'm a corpse. And so I'm like, well, 15. And by the way, I looked at it and I had it on an Apple Watch, a Whoop, an Oura Ring, an 8 Sleep. I had like 5 different data points, all saying my heart rate variability is right around 15. And it doesn't seem to change. I'm on vacation. it's the same.
Oh, interesting.
I have a really stressful meeting coming up, it's the same. I drank the night before, it's the same. I didn't drink, I got good sleep, I didn't get good sleep. Like, it doesn't seem to change no matter what. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know what to do with that. And when I would even talk to a cardiologist about it, they'd be like, oh, well, everyone's different. I'm like, well, then what the hell good is the number?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much credence I put into the number because, I think two things I've just learned. One, all the things you're telling me, 6 hours sleep, you're doing triathlons, you're superhuman. I figured this out.
I don't do triathlons anymore.
Okay. But still, your strength at your age, so you may be a superhuman compared to the rest of us. But I will say that, what's interesting is, so even when you're doing high impact exercises, it still doesn't change that.
No,
That's what I'm
so I don't know if it's that the measurement's wrong. Like, that's the other thing that I feel
Yeah.
people say, well, it's not really a heart rate variability. It's an approximation based on some thing. And so I'm thinking maybe that's the issue.
That's
And so I
interesting.
literally just bought a new chest strap heart rate monitor that's
Yeah.
supposed to do a better job of heart rate. So I was going to try that out and see. But yeah, it's frustrating when I'm like looking at a number and I don't know what to do with it.
Here's a question for you. So does that stress you out? No. It's just serious. Does it bother you?
I wouldn't say it stresses me out. It's just like,
It's frustrating.
I'm trying, I'm a very data-driven person.
Yeah,
I try to make
likewise.
data-driven decisions as much as I can.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. And I'm told it's important, but there's nothing I can do with it.
Well, the reason I asked if it stressed you out, because one component in all of this is that, stress. So there was a lady that they interviewed and she was 115, I think. She was very old, but they said, what's your secret to longevity? And she said, I mind my business and I don't care about anything. And I think there is a truth to that, right? Like, the more we stress ourselves out about, kind of, so for example, like kind of going back to people that are spending millions on longevity and doing all these things, and I don't know if this is how they're thinking, but if they're obsessed with this stuff
Yeah.
and they get stressed about every little number, that's not good for your health either.
Yeah.
So I personally would just not even look at it ever again.
It's probably it's probably the right way to go because everyone's
because you're doing everything else right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I promise you the people in those blue zones are not looking at their heart rate variability.
I'm sure they're not. Well, also, Dr. Alexander, I can't thank you enough for coming on. So where can people find CoreViva? Again, I would have had you on if I didn't, and we wouldn't be adding you to Titan Arc if we didn't think you guys were best in class.
Appreciate that.
Where can people find you and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, so right now our first and flagship clinic is in Newport Beach, California. If you're coming from out of state, get in touch, call us, because we do things for you if you're coming from out of state. CoreViva.com, CoreViva, CoreViva.com. And then on all social media handles, we're CoreViva, except for Instagram, where we're core_Viva. And so you can check us out there. There's actually a lot of fun videos we put out, a lot of health tips we put out. There's been some interesting people that have come by, celebrities, also people of all walks of life that have come out and seen us, and you'll see those on our Instagram. And also we're coming out with a podcast soon ourselves. We've recorded some very interesting episodes, and those will go live in April. So that'll be exciting.
Well, what's the name of the podcast?
Know Your Body.
Oh, excellent. Well, Dr. Alexander, thanks again for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.